My day kicks off with a refreshing Celsius energy drink, then straight to the gym. Pre-K pickup, back home to meal prep. Time for my fire station shift. One more Celsius, gotta keep the lights on. When the 3-alarm hits, I'm ready. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
What's up, Foot Clan? This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. PrizePicks is the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on PrizePicks. What do I love about it? How fun and simple the experience of playing the game is. Had a lot of fun this past preseason playing and picking players that I know I believe in. You know how I feel about Jameson Williams. You know how I feel about Tyler Warren. There are a lot of players you've got that good feeling on, and you can highlight them and pick them out on PrizePicks. Check out the max discounts on the app now, like Travis Kelce at 0.5 receiving yards for the September 14th game. Download the app today and use the code FOOTBALLERS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code FOOTBALLERS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome back. Tuesday, September 23rd here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined once again by Matthew Never in Doubt Betz.
Kyle, you know what's funny about the NFL? You always think you know what's going to happen. I mean, the Packers, obviously, are going to beat the Browns. There's no way they lose that game. The Niners, there's no way they're going to lose this game to the Cardinals. I mean, it's the Cardinals, dude. And our Niners, hashtag our Niners, came back. They pulled through. The corpse of this team, I mean, like in hindsight, it was probably a terrible survivor pick, if we're being honest. Because I thought Juwan Jennings would play. He did not. They obviously have no Brandon Ayuk, and they got some other injuries, no Brock Purdy. But McCorkle Jones, Kyle, I don't know if you saw, re-injured his PCL in that game. And I honestly thought for a second Adrian Martinez was going to have to enter that game, which would have been good night to us. GG, it's over. But Mac Jones, dude, this guy is an absolute dog.
He's a gamer.
Knee brace on, not concerned at all. Man, that's so funny. So our text chain on Sunday during the game was pretty great because the second Nick Bosa got rolled out, which, dude, I feel terrible for that because his second ACL injury on the same knee, big bummer if you're a 49ers fan, but the second he got rolled out, it was over. It's like, this team is definitely going to lose.
I'm looking at your text right now. You said, you know what happened? Bosa got ruled out. I knew we were cooked then. The 49ers are dead. I'm looking at my phone at 7:01 p.m. When was it when the safety happened?
Yes.
Okay. And it looks like I texted about the Chargers, and then I wrote never in doubt, and then sent you that amazing gif of Mac Jones in his way too big of suit walking into the NFL draft. Because there he goes, dude. This dude doesn't quit. So if you rode with us in our survivor pick, hopefully you're alive because your heart rate was definitely up.
Well, if you take a look at this, I tented my pants.
It was a fun sweat. I forget that survivor pools, survivor picks are nerve-wracking. But there's a lot of people that pick the Packers. There's some people who pick the Falcons. Imagine that. Imagine picking a team that's not, they're going to get relegated. I don't know if you knew that this year. The Falcons are going to move down.
Not a single point against the Panthers. Not one. I mean, this team, can you even imagine being a fan of the Falcons? Dude, this week was crazy. This was like the perfect week of just, like every year, we kind of say it in passing sometimes on, like talking about win total bets or, bets ball, strategy and lineups and stuff. And it's like, nobody ever can predict the NFL season. And this past week was like the perfect example of that. Of course, the Packers losing to the Browns, crazy. The Falcons as, 5.5, I think they closed favorites against the Panthers, not scoring a single point and getting destroyed 30-0, stuff like that. And then the DST scoring was crazy in fantasy too because of all the block kicks, all the returns for touchdowns, the pick sixes. I mean, I forget the stat, but I think it was the most blocked kicks in a game or like most defensive scores in a week or something like that since like week 12 of like 2020, something like that. Like absolutely crazy slate. So it was a wild one out there, man. But that's what makes the NFL so fun is that you really can't ever know what's going to happen when you sit down to watch these games. But yeah, crazy slate this past week.
Yeah, I showed you one of my tournament lineups that I think hit like 196. So it was a really, really good week. And I barely min cash despite having the Vikings, put up 30 whatever points at defense. And across the board, like if you didn't have one of those defenses, I'm sorry, but that's really what you needed on this week in tournaments. And then you also just needed to get a little bit off the board. Some of the chalk, we'll talk about that in a second, did not hit the way that we wanted to. So we'll review our process. We will then look at week 4, which is a really interesting slate. There's only 11 games, but it is like very condensed. The teams that are on this slate, I looked this up, among the top 10 NFL teams in Super Bowl odds, 9 of the 10 are on the main slate this week for DFS. So although it's smaller than what we usually get because we have a London game and a doubleheader on Monday night, it is one of those weeks where I feel like, it's not just super simple. It's not just like, oh, there's only a couple of games. Is it? Like, there's a lot of different directions to go. So we'll talk about that. If you want to get all of our picks, you can get them in the DFS Pass, dfspass.com. And for those that listen to this podcast, little cheat code here. Use the promo code DFSPod. You can save on it, and it goes all throughout the rest of the season into the playoffs. I've had people in the past that got the DFS Pass, and they've kind of stayed afloat. That's one of the things we've talked about. It's like, man, like I'm not doing great, or I'm just like I'm right where I was, and then a couple of weeks in, they hit a big one, and it totally changes things. So, it's great, and it's great to see all the different interactions and people in Discord. So dfspass.com if you want to get in on that. But let's review.
Weekly Rewind.
So every week on the website, I write a cash review article, and Betz writes a small field GPP review. I was very happy to put my boy Keenan Allen as the cover boy. 3 weeks, 3 touchdowns, no big deal. For a guy that was never a touchdown guy in his career, it's funny to think over the last really calendar year as a Bear and as a Charger, he's kind of been a touchdown guy. But I called it on the podcast that CeeDee Lamb would be a slate breaker. And boy, did he break the slate.
If you played him, you're probably broke. So good call, Kyle. Well done.
That was the goal, is did you roster CeeDee Lamb? No, I have some people that were like mad about it and all over the place, like, hey, this is part of football. It's how it works. I was very fortunate, and I wrote this up in my cash article, that based on the rest of my roster and based on those decisions, like I still was able to cash in double ups and get over 50% in my head-to-heads, despite getting a fat goose egg from CeeDee Lamb. And all of that really was that end of 49ers game where, Christian McCaffrey gets that last little 20-yard catch. But it really came down to this week, did you play the obvious running backs, Jordan Mason, Kenneth Walker? Did you spend down at quarterback? So Marcus Mariota was our top quarterback. That went really well. He got over 21 DK points. We said he only needed about 12. 21's awesome. And then at the very end of the afternoon slate, the chalk hit with Keenan Allen getting a touchdown. We played Trey McBride, which was really fortunate. He got in the end zone. And then at DST, all the crazy scores from DST weren't the cash game DSTs. Like people usually punted with like the Bengals, or they played the Raiders, or the Packers got 8 points if you spend up. The Falcons, imagine that. Their defense was a mirage. And we were fortunate to land on the Jaguars, who put up 12 points and kind of was the differentiator there. But really, it was just a couple of 1v1, 2v2 decisions. I landed on a CD lineup instead of Puka, which I could have done even better, but I was fortunate to cash despite a 0.
Yeah, I thought it was a really pretty straightforward slate for cash. Like there was 6 obvious plays, and it It was also a weird slate because we almost had like too much money to go around, where
Yes.
normally we're like, trying to find like a punt play that we're like, well, I'll just do this and the rest of my lineup will work. This week, like you had so much money to play with because you had Mariota at, 4K. You also had Jordan Mason and Ken Walker, once we got Zach Charbonnet ruled out, as just like obvious standout plays. And then it was like from there, it was a great slate for cash, but also tricky because there was almost too many good plays, right? Like I know a lot of people played Jonathan Taylor, smashed again. A lot of people played Christian McCaffrey. Some people played Bijan, which if that was you, I don't think that's bad process by any means. I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, I played Bijan, instead of Jonathan Taylor. Like, do you think that was wrong? It's like, if you tell me the Falcons are favored against the Panthers and Bijan is beginning the workload he has, which has been incredible, I think it's a great play. So it was one of those that I felt like if you were just on like the wrong running back or the wrong combos of kind of where you landed and you happened to land on a lineup that got up to CD and also had like Bijan or something compared to JT, like, yeah, you didn't have a great week. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty straightforward cash slate just because there was so much money to go around. It was very unique. And I thought that made it a pretty unique slate too from like a tournament perspective. In my small field, I would say I stack every single time. This week I actually didn't stack. I played Mariota naked just because it was like, well, if you compare Mariota or even Carson Wentz, if you wanted to play him, to like the cheap wide receiver plays, like, Troy Franklin was like kind of floating around as like a play at 4K, but it's like there was no good 4K plays this week, honestly. So it's like I'll take my value there. And then I kind of went into some game stacks at other spots in my lineup around it. I got buried in small field because I think I got too cute this week. I thought it was a really good slate for early information for late swapping. Remember Dallas, Chicago was in the late window. Everybody wanted to stack that game, myself included. But the lineup I played, I wanted to get early information to know how to handle Ken Walker in the late window, Christian McCaffrey in the late window, Keenan Allen in the late window. And so I played Jaylen Warren instead of Jordan Mason. Obviously, it didn't work. I also played Saquon Barkley as the spend up leverage play over like Jonathan Taylor and McCaffrey, and it didn't work. So the lineup that's in my review article is not the lineup I started with. I had to swap off and get into some weird stuff. So it wasn't a good week for me, but that's part of the risk you take when you do try to get leverage early. And, you don't want to be hindsight biased and say, oh, well, that was bad. But, the chalk this week, the other thing with this is that I thought it was just unbelievably strong. And sometimes there's slates where the chalk feels kind of shaky. This week, I mean, all the top values, in the optimizer and everything were right. Taylor, McCaffrey, Mason, like these guys were all incredible plays. So I think that was somewhat bad process in my part to exclude both of those guys in the early window with Saquon and Warren. I don't mind getting early information, but definitely feel like that was one that I made a mistake on, just not recognizing like how truly great of plays these guys were.
One of the things that I talked out in the best plays article and the tournament takes article that came out on Saturday was, what do you do with Jordan Mason? Okay, and I literally just laid out the pros and cons. If you play Jordan Mason at 5,400, you get this early information like you were saying, but if he hits and you don't play him in tournaments, you are very far behind everyone else because the salary savings that you're getting from there. So all I was trying to do is like, I played some lineups where I didn't play Mason, and then I had other ones where it's like, well, he's the chalk. I'm just going to plug him in there. I know that, a ton of the field's going to play him. I think that's the part that I want to highlight to people is that you can look back and say, I should have done this, I should have done that, but just kind of review like, okay, with Mason as this play that I know everyone's going to play, which I was shocked that he still wasn't as high in cash. Same thing with Keenan. Like Keenan was only 50% in some double ups where he was the obvious play of the week, and then he scored late because he's a baller, and so was Justin Herbert. It's more of just saying, if I do this, what am I saying with my lineup? If I am playing Jordan Mason, what am I saying, the rest of the field is going to do and how are they going to respond? That's the kind of like ebbs and flows that you need to think about when it comes to game theory. And we talk all of that out in the Discord if you want more conversation with that. We did have some listeners that won big this week. Money, 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 money. And I want to just highlight the Monday night slate because that's fresh on my mind. It's fresh on my feed in our Discord. But Chris Cash, who writes our Monday night article, we had some great one. This one's from JHammer88. He said, I took down the $3 play action tournament, which is very hard, on the Monday night article. Thanks to the Monday night article on the site. Thanks, Chris. I'm definitely hitting Chili's this week. And at captain, he has our boy Mark Andrews sitting there.
They said it couldn't be done, Kyle. They said he was done. Mark Andrews, so back, dude. I can't wait for next week when he goes 2 for 20 and no touchdown. It's going to be very fun. But yeah, that was great. Man, what a weird game. Like, didn't it kind of feel like in that game that the Ravens would kind of start to take control and then get it going? But they just the fourth down play at the goal line was so bad. Their goal line decision making was kind of rough. But dude, Dan Campbell and the Lions, man, they're a fun team to watch.
It was funny because whenever I was watching in the first half, it was like Montgomery runs were like chunk gain. Gibbs stop.
That was weird. Normally you think of Montgomery as like the success rate guy and he'll get you 4, 5, 6 yards, and Gibbs is ripping off the 50-yarders, but it was the opposite last night.
Yeah, and then Lowndes also, he played Rashad Bateman in the captain spot, also had Mark Andrews in there. And it looks like he won a little over $1,200 in a tournament. He said, I guess I got to go to Chili's. Betz, I did get to go to Chili's. I messaged you on Friday, little pregame before Truman's Friday night game, took the family to Chili's.
Oh, so you got Chili's before the game?
Yeah, that's... They were like, hey, we're really hungry. And Truman's game wasn't until 7:30 at night. A T-ball game at 7:30 at night is pretty late.
Under the lights.
Yeah, the Cardinals, man, he crushed it. But of course, my wife got a Don Julio.
Emma knows what's up, man. She knows.
It was very good. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty great. But every single week, we love celebrating with you guys. And then especially on the single slates, it's really, really fun to focus in on that. This next week's a Monday night doubleheader, which if you want all of that, Chris gets to write up that every single week in the DFS pass. But we're going to move on. If I can find the drop that has Mike Glennon on it. Oh, here it is.
State of the main slate.
Who's running the show here?
Amateur hour. Tell you what.
I've been hitting the same button for 5-6 years, and I didn't even know where it was anymore. All right, so let's quickly get into the slate context, and then we'll break down these games. But because we have a Sunday AM game in Ireland, all right, Vikings and Steelers, and a doubleheader on Monday night, it's a lot smaller this week. And normally we would say the chalk is going to condense. There's a couple of good plays. There's maybe 1 or 2 games that you would circle. Right now, dude, I'm seeing like 6 or 7 games that legitimately you could say this game could be the one that goes off, because they're all sitting in that window where right now I'm seeing 4 games above 46.5. And then if you include the kind of 44.5 or 45, I'm seeing 6 or 7 games. So before we talk about specific teams, like how are you handling this slate comparatively to last week, which was very different?
Yeah, like you're saying, last week we pretty much had, as far as like on paper, what looked like the best game was, Bears and Cowboys, and that was kind of alone at the top. This week, there's a lot of good game environments that I think are going to be really fun to attack. And like you mentioned with some of these totals, the highest game totals really are in the late window. Like Rams, Colts is at 49.5, Niners, Jaguars 47.5 currently, Ravens and Chiefs at 48.5, and then Bears and Raiders at 47.5. Those games are all right there in the late window. So I think a lot of game stacks are going to kind of revolve around that, because the other high total game, Buffalo and Saints, you can onslaught the Bills if you want, but like the Saints have a implied team total of 16. So, and the spread is 16.5, which is just absurd. So nobody's really, I think, going to be super excited to stack that game. So I think a lot of game stacks are going to revolve around the late window. So again, it does look like a really good slate to use late swap to your advantage.
I was looking at that Saints game because I have a soft spot for Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson. We've talked about this for a while. Kellen Moore, another guy that you and I have always loved the pace of play. They are dead last in the league in explosive pass rate. So you get a lot of volume, and yet it's still Spencer Rattler under center.
Yeah. Hey, Chris Olave leads the NFL in targets.
In my targets league, dude, I am crushing this year.
Mm-hmm.
Targets only, by the way.
Nothing else matters. Oh, man. Well, maybe one day. Maybe one day it'll work out.
I think I might try to do a league. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get messaged. Should I even say this out loud? I do want to do a league. I used to do fantasy baseball. It's how I got into this thing we do with our lives now with fantasy. But, in fantasy baseball, you can do categories, or it's like how many runs and stuff. I would love to do a league like that, but it's like routes. targets per route run. The targets per route run league.
You could legitimately actually play the game in a spreadsheet the way you want to.
Okay, well, I'll design it, and I'm gonna get messaged. Damn, why did I say that? I'm such an idiot for saying that. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Disney Plus, Hulu, and the new ESPN app. For the first time ever, get all of ESPN, along with Disney Plus and Hulu, with an incredible limited-time offer. It's all the entertainment you need for just $29.99 a month for 12 months. Visit Disney Plus Hulu ESPNBundle.com for details. Ad-supported plan auto-renews at regular price, currently $35.99 per month, subject to change unless canceled. Ends January 5th, 2026. Terms apply.
I'm Scott Hansen, host of NFL Red Zone. Lowe's knows Sundays hit different when you earn them. We've got you covered with outdoor power equipment from Cobalt and everything you need to weatherproof your deck with Trex decking. Plus, with lawn care from Scott's and, of course, Pit Boss grills and accessories, you can get a home field advantage all season long. So get to Lowe's, get it done, and earn your Sunday. Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
All right, let's break down the Week 3 slate. Give me the teams with the highest team implied totals for Week 4.
Buffalo lapping the field, 32.5.
Jeez.
At home against the Saints. Then you have, if you drop down, the Lions at 27, the Rams 26.5, the Ravens 25.5, and the 49ers at 25.3. I assume that the market is baking in that Brock Purdy will be back this week.
All right, so let me just talk about that Buffalo Bills implied point total of 32.5, because that's massive. Being a 16.5 point favorite is a big deal. In the Josh Allen era, they have been 2 touchdown home favorites 10 times, by the way. 10 times. But they've only hit that 32 point mark twice. Is that surprising to you?
I mean, it's just a really high, that's hard to do. Even last week, I know a lot of people were on the Bills. I think the team total closed 30.5 for Buffalo against Miami. And, you know, they were right there. So it's just hard to score 40 points in the NFL. That said, the Seahawks did just do that last week against these Saints. So wouldn't be surprised if they hit it, but it's just hard to do that in an NFL game.
Yeah, in those games, they averaged over 30 rush attempts on 149 yards on the ground. So really, if they salt away the game, it's kind of like what they've done in the past. It's like, hey, they get a lead, get a bunch of rushes. You see a bunch of Ray Davis in the second half, Ty Johnson, where I wish you could say the Saints could be competitive, and they were the first 2 weeks, but it was bad this past week. Like the Seahawks game, it was over right away.
It was over with about 8 minutes left in the first quarter.
So which games do you feel like is going to be the most popular this week to stack?
So I put down Indy and the Rams, and I don't know how much the quarterbacks really get played here just because, you know, Stafford isn't really giving us a ton of ceiling these days, although he's played great. Last week was kind of up and down, but overall has played great this year and healthy, which we were concerned about in the summer. And then on the Colts side, again, I think everybody's kind of slow to come around to the Daniel Jones stuff, but this offense is humming. Jonathan Taylor, once again, is going to be in play, and then you can always call your shot on one of the pass catchers, whether it's Tyler Warren, who I think we'll talk about is probably cash viable, and then Michael Pittman has played well. You could always go to Josh Downs in a low-rostered tournament setting. So I feel like that one just profiles pretty well, given the dome environment, and the total currently is the highest on the main slate.
All right, so I definitely agree that that game is above the rest, and that these afternoon games are appealing from a total standpoint, but I'll kind of put them all in the same category. I think a game that's going to get some in the early window that I want to highlight is Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. It did get bet down. It's now at only 43.5, but it's more thinking of like the high-end players in the early slate that could give you the raw points that you need. You saw the Eagles get pushed this past week finally, and one of the things that I wrote up in my Tournament Takes article is if you guess right on that game, you can get ahead. And the way you guessed right is by playing a Hurts, double stack with Brown and Smith. And you brought it back with like Puka or somebody last week. I do think this game has some appeal, especially on the Buccaneers side. They're cheaper than they need to be. Both of these teams are 3-0. And it seems like Mike Evans might miss with a hamstring issue. So there could be some value on the Buccaneers side. I did want to bring up the fact that your Eagles are, 1-4 against the Buccaneers in the Jalen Hurts era. 1-4. That includes the playoffs.
Sounds like it's time to get a W here.
On the road? Are you calling it?
I mean, they're the healthier team.
But mentally, are they strong?
You kidding me, dude? You see that comeback last week? There's no luck involved with blocking those kicks.
Were you so scared?
Oh, I was pretty much. It was funny. My wife was like the girls woke up from their nap. They're like, "Hey, do you want to watch some football with Dad?" They said yes, and it was at that point, they were still down like 2 touchdowns or something. And I was like, I don't know, like maybe we should just go to the park or something. Like they're not going to win this game. And we watched one more drive. All of a sudden, Hurts starts cooking. Wild things happen when you attempt to forward pass in the NFL, and they got lucky. But they definitely it's so funny. Like I feel like the Eagles fans and like the media are so finicky. Like everybody wants to have a reason to like argue with stuff. It's like this team is 3-0. Let's just have fun and enjoy wins. I don't know. It just makes me upset. But I will say Lane Johnson definitely matters for this team. You saw the run game really struggle when he left with injury, so I'll be watching him in this game. But the Bucs, man, how are they 3-0? Like they are so fortunate to be 3-0. It's unbelievable.
With injuries to their O-line.
Well, they had the last minute comeback this past week, obviously after the block kick. Then they had the last minute comeback against the Texans on Monday night the week prior. But they just have so many injuries. Offensive line, Buka battled through injury this game. Mike Evans is going to miss this game. Obviously, we're still waiting on Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan. Like the list goes on and on. So we'll see as far as the offensive line is concerned. I will say if they get Tristan Wirfs back, that will help a ton. But Baker's going to be throwing to Sterling Shepard and Igbuka pretty much. And hey, don't forget about Cade Otton.
I was about to bring him up. All right. Last 3 weeks, what if I told you his snap count has increased from 86 to 91 to 92? He's goose egged twice.
If these trends continue, Kyle,
he's at least fun to bring up. I think it's interesting. I love Bucky's price too at 6,900. What do you think is one of the sneakiest games on this slate? Why'd you put this on there?
Kyle, what do we always say about the NFL? Nothing is ever as bad or as great as it might seem. And right now in Atlanta, it feels bad. Like bad. I forget what show it was. It was like one of the NFL podcasts I listened to. They were talking about if it was, time to consider Kirk Cousins. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like it's so funny. Literally just 7 days ago after that great win in primetime, everybody was like, this Falcons defense is great. Penix is playing okay. And after 1 week, everybody's ready to pull the plug. It's just so funny. But I think Washington Atlanta is a potential spot to attack just because the total at 45.5 looks solid. It's in a dome, obviously. Tough to be the Commanders going on the road to Mercedes-Benz, but I think it's a bounce back spot for Atlanta's offense. 2 of 3 opponents against Washington have gone over their team total. And as we talked about entering that Carolina game, like it did feel like the market was like overvaluing Atlanta's defense because they played JJ McCarthy behind a banged up offensive line, and McCarthy's done nothing this year. And then they got, kind of exposed last week. So I think Washington can get home in this spot. And then I think you're going to have some cheap value here to make it all work. If Daniels doesn't play, Mariota's back and play at 5K. Terry McLaurin has a quad injury, so we'll see on him. But if he misses, it makes the stacks very clean with either Debo or Zach Ertz. And then Drake London is $5,700. So if you want to go there, it is very, very cheap.
I'll think about it. I'll get back to you later on this week. I wanted to bring up Chicago.
It's too fresh. You can't talk about the Falcons.
Yeah. People were asking me, like, are you okay after the loss? I was like, dude, I got the Chargers, baby. I got Keenan Allen.
And the Braves. Don't forget
But
them.
I'm also burying it very, very deep. I like talking out stuff in my life. I'm usually not a bury. Falcons, you just kind of bury it and move on. All right, let's bring up Chicago. At Las Vegas, I'm seeing 47.5 is bet up in a couple places to 48. I love this matchup because both teams can't run the ball at all to save their lives. Okay, so we're going to get a lot of passing volume. They also cannot stop the pass. So both teams have terrible pass defenses. I think this is a great buy low for Ashton Genty against one of the league's worst run defenses. And I think you could stack up either side relatively cheaply. Like Geno is going to be in the cash conversation this week. Caleb is the QB2 in fantasy. So I think that one's interesting. And then I do want to give a little tip of the cap. Okay. to Cleveland at Detroit. I think that's a sneaky place for a Joe Flacco volume game. It's going to happen one of these weeks.
It is interesting because thinking about the Lions' run game, which obviously is very good, the Browns' run defense has been unbelievable so far. So maybe they force Jared Goff to go through the air more. That could be fun. They do give up big plays, Cleveland does historically with this scheme. So maybe a little Jameson Williams. We'll see.
It's a sneaky game, right? Like in the early window, it's one of the ones I'm like, okay, I could see a Flacco double stack finally getting there. If you keep clicking the button and you're depositing, it could pay off now.
It is in the Dome in Detroit. So we've seen games get a little nutty there. So I don't mind that.
All right, which game do you want to be underweight on?
So I put down Baltimore and KC. Obviously, this is like the game of the week. It's going to be on the commercials, all that stuff. But just like, and maybe this is too simplistic thinking, but like, when's the last time we actually like needed Chiefs in DFS? Like, it's been, this offense is kind of tough to watch. If we're being
Xavier
honest.
Worthy in the Super Bowl.
That is correct. Love him forever for that. And I do think Worthy comes back. So maybe it does bring some explosiveness to this offense, but we've been having the same conversation for a year and a half now at this point. They have no run game. I don't know. They seem pretty one-dimensional at this point, and I think Baltimore, it's a nice bounce-back spot. Baltimore is not as bad as what they were in primetime on Monday night on the defensive side of the football, so I'm not there with Kansas City. They've really struggled. They've gone under their team total in every game this year. Their games are 2-1 to the under. So it's more just a Kansas City issue for me. I don't mind like a one-off play here or something like that, but I don't think I'll be getting into Mahomes stacks. And, Lamar is always in play for his ceiling, but just the game environment to me, it feels like more like an under than an over.
I was going to say at 48.5, I would take the under right now as a pro sharp bettor that definitely bets totals all the time.
Okay. Kyle told you, lock of the week, under.
Just don't let me take any overs. Okay. Cause they don't go so well.
Oh my goodness, dude. Gives me anxiety every time we take an over.
Our unders are doing a lot better. So maybe we'll do an all under week just because I will not be tempted by Jacksonville at San Francisco. Okay? I'm not going to be tempted by this matchup. I've said it before, and I might be doubling down again, but Trevor Lawrence is not good at the game of fantasy that we play. That is a different conversation of can he be a franchise quarterback? Can they be fine? He is not good at being able to produce results that matter. And San Francisco's defense has kind of been reborn under Robert Saleh, where we knew that they had a lot of personnel losses, but scheme-wise, they've been really, really good. And I just don't trust Trevor Lawrence on the road. I know if you want to buy into a Brian Thomas Jr. buy low opportunity in your redraft or dynasty, that's a different conversation. But I feel like this game, of all the games on there in the afternoon window, is a trap.
I definitely see that angle. The splits without Nick Bosa historically, the defense struggles. So, I mean, you could see a world where that happens. And man, like, there's no, like, any expected fantasy points article you read this week. We have one on our site. Like, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be in there.
Yes.
Like it's so obvious. Like, the volume is there. It's like, this guy is not as bad as we've seen. So, part of me just likes Payne and like might go there if he's low rostered this week, but we'll see. I do think the game has much more appeal to actually shoot out if Purdy is in there, if Juwan Jennings is back. So we'll see. There's a lot of moving parts, but for now, I'm just kind of waiting for more information before making a decision.
I think it would be different if there were one or two games in the afternoon window, but like there's legitimately 5 or 6 games that I think are on par or there with it. That's my early take. I could be wrong later on in the week. Which team are you confident hits the over their team implied total?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Rams to go over 26.5. More just kind of buying back into the Rams. I mean, they had a nice day offensively in Philly, but now they come home where they're historically much better in the Dome. Stafford playing at a high level overall, I would say, and healthy. They are 6th in EPA per play, 6th in success rate, 5th in yards per play. And I'm just not sure I'm buying the Colts defense is as good as maybe people think. They've played the Dolphins, who looked completely lost in week 1. They played Denver with Bo Nix really struggling in week 2 in that inconsistency. Then they played Cam Ward. Yet with all of those, I would say, somewhat easy matchups, they're still 15th in yards per play allowed, and they just lost their slot corner, Kenny Moore, to a calf injury. I think Sean McVay will try to exploit that with Puka, and I like them to put up 27 points here.
I like Tampa Bay at home. It's at 20 points right now, 20.3. Last year in week 4, they played this team at home. I get the health was a little different, but they beat the Eagles 33-16. Baker was really, really good in that game. The thing with Baker is that if he's like left to his own devices of just running around, he has some really cool plays where he gets the extra yardage, but just get the ball out fast, man. You're really good at that part of your game. You were awesome last year. I think that's going to be part of it. I do think it's a sneaky spot where if it gets up to 3.5, I will be taking the Buccaneers plus 3.5.
Oh, you're actually going to bet this one?
I'm saying if I was going to, hypothetically speaking.
Kyle, who are you, man? You're taking totals and sides now? Jeez, for 6 easy payments, you can get those delivered right to your phone from Kyle.
Yeah, I definitely, I'll send it to you on my AIM. You can, it's on my away message right now. Which team are you most confident hits the under of their team implied total?
I went with the Giants for this one. 19 points. Seems like a tall task. Obviously in week 2, they were the greatest show on turf against the Cowboys, who can't stop literally anybody. But they're still 2-1 to the under on their team total, and there's just question marks everywhere. Quarterback play. I don't know what the play calling is. Like, Jackson Dart, get in there, but don't do anything except for hand it off. But get out of there, and Russ, come in here and you run the zone read at 35 years old, or whatever he is. Like, come on. And now they get an LA defense in the Chargers that's top 10 in yards and points allowed on a per play basis. They're also top 10 in first downs allowed per game. So I can't get there with the Giants.
How does Brian Daboll still have a job if he's not even calling plays? I think I said that last week, and I'll say it again. How is that possible?
Dude, I mean, I know that the Chiefs tried to take away Malik Neighbors in that game. It's just malpractice. Like, that guy has to have 8+ targets every single game, no questions asked. Like, you can't win without him. So, man, that was brutal to watch on Sunday night.
Like, think about in any other job setting. You are in charge of this department, and yet you do nothing there. So, yes, you are some type of manager that oversees things, and yet you run the department's going poorly, buddy. You're about to get chopped. Okay?
Do you think he's the first one? Well, actually, Mike McDaniel, maybe.
McDaniel's pretty volatile, where, like, he could just go in a meeting and say something weird, and they're like, dude, we're so sick of this.
I also think Brian Callahan, did you see the field goal fiasco in this game?
No, but that Tennessee is the team for this category who's going to hit the under of their implied total. I just wrote,
transition.
Yeah, they stink. Cam Ward is dead last completion percentage. They're dead last in play success rate. It's not good. Okay, Brian Callahan should definitely not be coaching a team. Could he be an offensive coach like he was with the Bengals and hide behind Joe Burrow? Sure, he could totally do that. But that matchup is brutal, man. It's at 39.5 right now. The Texans are 7-point favorites at home, despite the fact that they are dead last in points per drive. I could not fathom stacking up that game at all.
Dude, it's funny. I mean, the Titans obviously are not a good team, but you messaged me you're like, hey man, early survivor, what do you think about the Texans? And I was shocked that the spread it was what it was, because the Texans are not a good football team right now. Like, defensively, they're good. They just offensively, they can't get anything really going. So I was like, I don't know, that makes me a little nervous. But then I took a step back and I was like, whoa, the market is telling us the Titans are that bad, that they are more than a touchdown underdog in a division game. So, dude, it's been tough to watch.
Both of those teams are very, very hard to watch. And we are very big CJ Stroud guys here, but the version we're getting right now is under pressure. I mean, he's throwing to Schultz and Christian Kirk. Just older dudes that can't get separation the same way they used to. Yeah, I just can't fathom. Like, Tony Pollard was somebody I wrote up in the best plays that he's always going to project really well at his price point. You're going to see the opportunities. You're going to see the snap counts. The ceiling is really hard to find when this team is, projected for 16 points. But moving on.
Salary standouts.
All right, so it is Tuesday, and Betz and I have gotten to look at this slate, look at some of the pricing. On the website, I have my first look article, which sorts by all of the important categories. So there's lots of stats out there, and I love them all. But for fantasy, it really does come down to a couple things. If you're a quarterback, do you run? Running back, are you seeing enough opportunities? And what's your salary? Wide receiver, we could get really, really nerdy and talk about all these different stats, but it's like, are you seeing targets? Tight end, same thing, targets. That's all we really care about. So we sort all that stuff if you want to be a part of the DFS pass. For quarterback this week, we don't have the 4K guys to run to. We can't be like, oh, I'll just play Mariota. He's up at 5K now. Wentz isn't on this slate. So any early leans at the quarterback position?
Well, we should talk about some guy we never talk about and bring up Drake May. This 5,500. His price has basically been the same since the season started, taking on the Panthers. So that looks interesting to me. They are at home. And I also think Geno is in play. I would probably play May over Geno just early in the week for the rushing potential, but like you mentioned, that game does look pretty appealing against the Bears. Obviously, they've got injury issues and their secondary has really struggled. And Geno, like for fantasy, has had a dud game, but he's also had a couple of nice games because he's pushing the ball downfield and their defense has struggled, so he's kind of been pushed to do so. So I could see Geno getting there too at 5,400, but comparing him to somebody that can actually run, I certainly would prefer May, but I do think both guys early in the week look like they should be in the player pool.
Yeah, Geno week 1 was at 10.4 yards per attempt. That was the highest of week 1. It was awesome. Week 2, 4.2 YPA. That was the lowest of the week. And then back up to over 10 in week 3, the third highest. I was looking at that matchup because I'll detail it later on this week, but Chicago can't rush the pass at all, rush the passer. And Geno in a clean pocket is just a really, really good thing. It's always historically been a good thing. So I think he's interesting. I also was just looking at Bowers because although he's the most expensive tight end on the slate, I haven't really clicked him at all in DFS so far. But I think it's a sneaky spot for that team that's kind of off the radar. Same thing with Genty. I've been looking more at Genty this week, and so I think that's an interesting spot there. I did want to bring up Daniel Jones because you highlighted that game earlier, but you think that Daniel Jones and Stafford aren't going to get clicked a bunch. At 5,600, man, like he's running the ball and he's getting over 7 fantasy points per game just on the ground. So I think he's viable. It's just hard to figure out where to stack him up.
I think there's still this stigma. I don't know if that's the right word or just like preseason bias, right? Everybody was like, this isn't going to work. And it sometimes it takes, like last year with Sam Darnold, right? It took like, not joking, like 2.5 months before everybody was like, okay, I guess this is real. So if you think the Daniel Jones stuff is real, then yeah, he's underpriced. I feel like at some point he'll come crashing back down to earth, but I could be wrong. He's an interesting play in tournaments if nobody's going to go there. But yeah, he's been good, man. He's been great.
All right, one more quarterback name, Jalen Hurts, 6,700. Baker's at 6,500 in the same game. I feel like Hurts is kind of going to keep being in that price range where like DK is daring us to play him. And last week, if you went there, it's really good. You just need to ask yourself, are they going to get pushed in a game? But Jalen Hurts on the ground right now, I was looking this up for the main show. Jalen Hurts is averaging 11.2 fantasy points per game on the ground. That is 7th highest among all players in the NFL. So if you just look at him as a running back, he's the RB7 as a rusher, and then you add the passing stuff. So I think he's probably a better play on FanDuel, but Jalen Hurts is somebody that I just want to pay attention to early on in the week. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll go to running backs.
It's Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off select major appliances and save an additional $1,000 when you buy 4 select LG major appliances. Plus, get a free DeWalt 20-volt max 5 amp-hour battery when you buy a select DeWalt 20-volt max tool. Get the job done for less at Lowe's. We help. You save. Valid through 9/26. Selection varies by location while supplies last. See associate or Lowe's.com for more details and qualifying items.
Ah, DSW, birthplace of the humble brag. Here, the shoes are so good, no one would ever know how little you paid. If you didn't go telling everyone, that is. And with never-ending options for every style, mood, and occasion, all at really great prices, we'll definitely give you something to brag about. So go ahead, stock up on fresh sneakers from your favorite brands. Or try those boots you always secretly knew you could pull off. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or DSW.com.
All right, Christian McCaffrey is another player that we will bring up for the 4th week in a row, and we keep we'll keep doing it. He has 84 opportunities bets in 3 games. Only 2021 Derrick Henry and 2020 Derrick Henry, same guy twice, have seen more opportunities the first 3 weeks of the season. Is Kyle Shanahan going to break our dude?
Yes. But while it's going well, let's just keep riding it. He has touched the ball 77 times in 3 games. That puts him on pace for 436 touches this season. His previous career high was 403 back in 2019 when he was a Carolina Panther. So just absurd usage. And for context, if he was classified as a wide receiver, he would be 3rd in the NFL behind only Chris Olave and Puka right now. He's currently tied with Malik Neighbors for the 3rd most targets among all wide receivers. So again, you're getting a wide receiver and a running back here to play. It's crazy. Like, unless he gets to 9,500, like he's probably going to project as one of the best values on the slate every single week.
It's crazy because he hasn't scored a rushing touchdown yet.
This is the week.
This is the week. This past week, another stat we had on our website is that he saw a target or a rush attempt on 55% of the 49ers plays. So in other words, like over half the time, this dude was the plan. And I think that changes a little bit if Jennings is back, if Purdy's back. I think that changes a little bit. But CMC is going to be probably up there in the group. I did want to highlight James Cook because he took whatever touchdown regression you and your spreadsheets talked about this summer, Betz. I know I never mentioned that ever. And he punched it in the face.
He's been great.
They are 16-point favorites.
The role also seems different this year, doesn't it? Like, last year, the concern was like, oh, he's only on the field for 40% of the snaps and you're rotating. They haven't really played Ray Davis much this year, which is interesting, but he's been great. The offensive line is playing at an extremely high level. So he's been great, man.
Yep, 7,100 this week on DraftKings. I think he's going to be, if you don't go Josh Allen, do you think that's going to be a conversation in cash? If you don't go Josh Allen, you're going to see James Cook in cash lineups.
It's possible. I think people sometimes struggle with these heavy spreads where it's, there's like half of you that's like, okay, well, if they just meet their team total and he's pulled in the 4th quarter, maybe he's part of the reason why that happens. But then there's the other half that's like, I don't know, man, you might not get 4 quarters out of this guy if they really are up in a huge lead. So I think he's tricky. I think he's going to project very well, but there's kind of a wide range of outcomes in terms of his playing time.
There are 2 running backs below 6K this week that will be circled by a lot of people, and they should, but they're in the same game. So it's Marion Hampton at 5,900, Cam Scatterbo at 5,500. Both rookies, both super interesting. Hampton was one of those buy lows that we had talked about for a while. He's one of 3 rookie running backs for the last decade to see 75+% of the snaps in the first 3 weeks. The other ones are Najee Harris. Remember, as a Steeler, he saw everything. And Saquon Barkley. Okay, so he's like everything for this team. I went back and watched all the Chargers snaps because that's what I do. This dude is like relied upon as their guy. I know Najee's out, but I think Hampton at 5.9 is going to project really, really well. And Scatterbo is going to see a ton of work with Tyrone Tracy likely out 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, both guys are going to project well. The workload should be there. It's interesting because we usually don't love to play 2 running backs in the same game. I think for cash, because the price points are so strong at below 6K for their workload projection, I think it's going to be fine. So I do think you're going to see a lot of lineups that have at least one of them, and you're going to see a decent amount that have both of them.
Yeah, my early lean is Hampton, but I also love the Chargers. On FanDuel, though, Scatterbo's at 5.4. They forgot about him. And
cheaper than DraftKings.
That's somebody didn't do their job. Once again, you can file a complaint if you want to, but he's going to project really well. I want to bring up Bucky at 6.9. He's just solid. I feel like you haven't had those Bucky games, but this year, Bucky has kind of been the workhorse guy that we saw at the end of the year, and I think he's a really good tag under 7K. Wide receiver. A lot of places to go, man. And a lot in that 5K range that we really like. Like, I'm looking at the guys you listed that are all the target monsters and all of our favorite players. So Drake London, 5.7, Jacoby Myers, your dude at 5.4, Keenan, my dude at 5.3, and Olave, my sick addiction to targets at 5.1. So I feel like you're going to probably see lineups with maybe at least two of those guys in them.
Again, another I feel like it's just kind of the way DraftKings has priced wide receiver this year is like the mid-range is so strong every single week that you always have 2 to 3, sometimes 4 options that are project well here. So yeah, I mean, I know it's been kind of tough for Atlanta with Drake London, but if you told me, a month ago during peak redraft season, we're going to get a price tag here on Drake London at 5,700, I would say that guy's going to be 80% rostered. So he looks great. Even if you're willing to buy some of the dip on Atlanta, Jacoby, same conversation kind of every week. We like that game. Keenan just gets it done. And Olave, the touchdown expectation is not great, but man, this guy is seeing double-digit targets every single week. We mentioned the 16.5-point spread. Like, they're going to have to throw. So in PPR, I think the floor is totally solid there on Olave.
I like A.J. Brown a lot, 6,400. His first read target share is 35%, which if you sort by that, you can do that in the first look article. If you look by just that, he is 4th highest on the slate. So his really good. Drake London's really good. I think Puka's the high-priced guy that every single week you go, how is this dude dominating the way? Like 45% of the team's yard, 37% of the targets, 12 targets per game. Puka's going to project really, really well, and it's a game environment we like. So of the Rams, I think he's the one that I want. Adams is still stuck at 6,200, though. It's interesting they didn't move his price at all after a touchdown game, but I think you can go that direction if you want. I think my early lean is if I can pay up for CMC and Puka. Those are like my pay up guys, pay down at quarterback, and then grab a couple in the 5K range.
Makes a lot of sense.
I will mention a couple under 5K. Jerry Jeudy at 4.9K is interesting in that game I highlighted earlier. And then with Mike Evans likely out, Sterling Shepard is at 4K. It is the grossest name possible. But people look at this on DFS. It's kind of like the bright light that you want to go to. And you go, there's a cheap wide receiver this week. He's a backup. I can play him.
We love the backups in DFS.
Oh, man. And especially if it's like a 3K backup, lock him in. But 4K is not cheap enough, but I wanted to highlight it.
Yeah, I mean, he was already running a decent amount of routes as is. Now with Mike Evans out, and we're still waiting on Chris Godwin, but you're not going to get a full snap share from Godwin in his first game. So there's just no way he's not on the field in this spot.
Yep, 28 routes per game. 56% of them are in the slot. He's been fine. Like 1.80 yards per out run, a first down on 11% of his routes. Sterling Shepard's fine at 4K. He's going to project well. Egbuka's interesting because I think that's where people want to run to. He's not that cheap, though, at 6,800. Like, do you have any issues? Do you have any issues with people playing Egbuka with Evans out in cash?
It's tough. He's been great. He also has been propped up somewhat early on by touchdowns, so there's some concern there. But I think he's going to get lost in the cash conversation just because these 5K wide receivers I think are going to be better values. And then when you get up to 6,800, it's like, man, at that point, like maybe I'm just going to try to find the 1,000 and figure it out to get to Puka. So I actually think he might be more of a tournament consideration this week, but we'll see when we get roster percentages.
DFS is a funny game because you can, let's say you put Egbuka in your lineup and you're messing around with combinations and you're at 6,800. I do the exact same thing where I'm like, but if I can find $1,000, if I can shift some stuff around, I could get Puka. Where like you had been focused in this one range, and then all of a sudden you're like, but there's this other dude, and you're skipping, another 10 names ahead of him. But Puka has been awesome. On FanDuel, there's a couple of names under 6K. Tedero McMillan is seeing the type of target share that we want. They are on the road against New England, who could have Christian Gonzalez back, which would definitely change things. Early take. I told Betz, kind of like the Patriots this week in survivor pools.
I'm always down to bet on Drake May.
I like the Texans and the Patriots earlier in the week as like, I mean, it's not the sexiest play. It's not the slam dunk play. If like you want to play the Bills, do it. I'm trying to save the Bills for later on in the year.
Yeah.
But those are my early leans. Pity City also has been solid in 2 of the games. He's seen above a 22% target share. He's 5.8 against the Rams. He's also going to be solid. You have Calvin Ridley down because he's cheap, but I will never play Calvin Ridley.
I was going to say, I don't know if this is any recommendation or anything. I just wanted to highlight that salary stood out to me. This is like borderline like some of the wide receivers that are priced below 5,500 are not even like running a lot of routes out there. Like this price is crazy. I mean, his box scores have been terrible, so I understand why, but just wanted to highlight the price tag on Ridley is pretty wild over on FanDuel.
They're paying him a lot of money though to run routes.
They sure are.
In my routes per dollar spent by NFL teams, killing it.
He honestly might be the first pick in that format.
I've thought about doing like little spreadsheet stuff where I do like dollars spent, but I feel bad posting those types of things because this is like real people, real decisions where it's like, Brian Thomas Jr., I tweeted out something about his catch rate. It's a very blunt statistic, but it's like, this is what it is. When you start involving the money, people start to get a little cranky, and then they're like, oh, well, he's spoiled. He's not doing anything. It's like, I don't know if Calvin Ridley's like not doing anything. It's just he's with a rookie quarterback and a terrible play caller.
Yeah. It is funny, though, when you break it down, like he's getting paid this much per catch this year, or, whatever it is. So it's funny. There was a couple of good, like in baseball, the contracts are always just like obscene. And like, these superstars like Soto and Harper, like their per at bat salary is unbelievable. It's like you can't even like wrap your head around it.
That's how much every single podcast, Betz and I, it's not a big deal. It's like only like a couple hundred G's, but
right.
We make it happen.
Obviously.
Betz and I, but just to clear the deck here, Betz and I do not get paid per episode. That's not how our jobs work.
You sure about that? I got my bonus check last week.
Oh man, per DFS Pass subscription. We used to joke. That's how Betz feeds the kids. Are you going to tell them that maybe one person signed up today? No, just kidding.
Good news, girls. We can have noodles tonight.
Let's go to tight end. Same names every week. Tyler Warren. He's just an absolute dog.
Be a dog. We don't need no meows. We don't need no cats.
4.6. Tyler Warren, DraftKings. Didn't work out last week because they got ahead, didn't need him. Usage is still there. I think I'm more willing this week in that game environment where it could be back and forth between the Rams and Colts. So I like his tag. Juwan Johnson starting to move up in price. He was $3,900 last week, $4,200 this week. They're going to be behind a ton. He's running a ton of routes in the slot. Same thing. It's like the same conversation we had. Any other names you want to mention?
I just want to throw out potentially Zach Ertz at 4,100. I believe he is, if no Terry McLaurin. And then probably more of like a game stack play than cash. But I think Cole Kmet, if there's no Colston Loveland, he left with a hip injury last week. If you're stacking up Caleb in that game or looking for a bring back on a Geno team or something, he is $3K, so he is quite cheap as well. And then over on FanDuel for Warren, who I think is going to be like the cash play over there, he's only 5,800, so he's going to be very, very popular.
Yeah, I don't mind punting with Kmet. I wrote him up in the First Look article. $3K is a great price for someone that's going to run 30 routes or whatever. So I'm totally fine if you want to punt there. Bowers is at 5,800. He's averaging 60 receiving yards per game. And yet I feel like we're all disappointed.
Well, he's also been banged up, with the knee issue. So could be the week.
It's like you could pay 5,800 for Bowers, or then you look over at London, who's 5,700, and you go, I feel like this is a better opportunity, but maybe it's not. Maybe you look at Penix and say he stinks, Falcons stink, and you don't want to go there. But you just got to compare those two things. Early leans at defense. The Patriots are at home against the Panthers. I'm playing the Patriots in a home league. They look good. If you wanted to punt with the Titans and you just said, hey, I don't really care, give me 3 or 4 points at 2,300, they're on the road, but it's against CJ Stroud and the Texans, who have struggled dead last in points per drive in the NFL. You can do that. Any other defenses you want to highlight?
No, I think those are the ones that make a lot of sense. Titans are also really cheap over on FanDuel, 3,500 there. So they're looking like a solid punt option. Normally, I don't love playing big underdog defenses, but the offensive line is such a mess for Houston. And the game total, I think last time I looked, was like 39.5 or something, lowest on the slate. So I don't mind that look at all.
The Rams are interesting at 2,900 for tournaments. If you think Daniel Jones finally implodes, You know that they have the pass rush to make it happen. So just early in the week, all I'm doing is going, okay, who are the cash considerations? And then who are these in the middle range that are just going to get lost? Like last week, it was Jacksonville, who we really liked, and Minnesota, where everybody was playing Jordan Mason, but Minnesota did not get played enough in tournaments. So make sure early in the week, just circle them. You don't have to say, this is my defense. When Betz and I are building our cash lineups, legitimately, I do not think about my defense till the very end. And then I see if I can fit it in. Even like Buffalo, they're 3,700. They're 2-touchdown home favorites. And I look back at all those games in the Josh Allen era, they averaged 2 turnovers forced per game whenever they were 2-touchdown favorites. So like it sounds great as a floor, but in cash, I'm not saying I need to go to the Bills. I might consider them for tournaments, but I don't love paying up just because it's not a great opportunity cost. If you want to play with us, go to ballersdfs.com. You can play in our DraftKings League, Fantasy Footballers DFS, Borg, and Betz. We will have a contest for Thursday night, which is the Cardinals and the Seahawks bets. You get to write a Thursday night article highlighting the joys of Kyler Murray.
And Marvin Harrison Jr.
And Trey Benson, who's one of my most drafted running backs not to take a victory lap.
Okay, Kyle, come on, man. Give it a week, okay? It's an interesting game, right? Because you have Kem Walker, some kind of up and down, but was great last week with the touchdowns. Then you get all the value on Cardinals. So yeah, I'll write that up. It'll be in the DFS pass. It'll be out early Thursday morning.
I'm kind of proud of Sam Darnold. You know, he's like game managing, but I'm just proud of him as like
he's doing what they're asking to do, and he's been really efficient. So he's played well.
Yeah, and that's like what Mike McDonald wants. He hated last year that they turned the ball over, fired Ryan Grubb. They're like, hey, let's play defense. And he has a good defense. He's about to get back even more pieces. So Betz will highlight all of that in the DFS pass. Sign us off.
Yes, sir. Fun episode as always. Recapping week 3, looking ahead to week 4. Hope everybody has a great week. And we'll be back on Friday to preview the DFS main slate. See you then.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com.